Good afternoon, everybody. It's 1 o'clock on the nose. We're going to give it just a minute. I usually like to give it a minute after, just to let stragglers get in here. I'm excited about this one today. I'm going to be learning along with all of you. Just give it that extra minute. Mr. Blankenship. Hey, dude, I'm so happy that you're on camera. I get to see you finally. You know, I get to call you coach, right? Vonna shared with me that you and your partner are high school football coaches, aren't you? Isn't that you?
Not a football coach.
Oh,
No.
okay. I blew that. Where the hell did that come from? All right, we'll talk about that later. I'll get us back on track. All right, we're ready to rock. I think we've got some people coming in. Actually, let's let them straggle in.
Kind of a severe echo is what I'm hearing. I don't know if you guys are hearing that too.
I hear that too.
Yeah, I hear it.
So I'm going to let the masterminds, Michael and the Chris, maybe take a minute and tell us what's
weird.
what.
Let's see here.
Okay. 40 people.
Someone might need to mute their computer.
Let me change my headset.
Hello. I think that did it, Michael. Whatever you
Okay,
just
we're
did,
good
I
now?
think we're good. Yeah, I think that's good. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Okay, let's do this thing, people. Thank you all again for being here. I'm especially excited about today. If you were with us a couple of weeks ago, we talked about house hacking. This is kind of a quasi part 2. And this one, like I said, I'm particularly excited about because this is kind of new to me too. So I'm going to be kind of learning as we go. We've got a guest speaker, obviously. I'm very excited to announce him. I'll get to that in just a second. But before we do that, I want to just set a few expectations about today and some other things. Then I'm going to read off Shawn's bio for you, Mr. O'Connor. So let's just kind of do some housekeeping. You know, the house hacking thing is becoming more prevalent. We get so much inquiry about that, and that was the reason that we decided to do the first webinar about that and finding ways, because affordability is that buzzword, right? Everybody's looking to find ways to leverage and get into higher price points, and interest rates are higher and yada yada. So I think that the natural progression of this leads us into this newer, less mainstream co-living and pad split. So, and I honestly, Shawn, you're going to probably have to remind me, but I don't even remember the exact connection that he and I made, but we started a dialogue online. We started talking via email. He was sharing with me some of what he's been doing, and I was totally captivated by it. And I said, hey, would you be interested in coming on with me and presenting to a group of investors? And he was all about it. So first of all, thank you, Shawn, very, very much for allowing us your time and information and education. Just to put this into perspective, you guys, today's webinar is really going to be about who this is for and setting expectations about, you know, what kind of cash flows you can expect. I mean, he's going to kind of get our juices flowing. We are going to kind of show you the nails and the hammer. We're not building the house today. We'll show you how to build the sausage or make the sausage later. So just to kind of give you that expectation, there'll be tons of great information, but just give you what that is. We're not going to get into the specifics, and Shawn will dig into that and tell you why and how, et cetera. And then also to let you know, a lot of what he's going to be speaking about lending related or leverage related will have to do with the all-in-one. If you are not familiar with that term, first lien HELOC, we can talk about it offline. Most of you here probably know what the all-in-one is because I'm talking about it all the time ad nauseum. So that reference will be part of his presentation. The point is, whether you know what it is or not, it is not a mandate or requirement in order to have co-living or pad split work for you. Obviously, Ridge has all of the different loan products. The all-in-one happens to be one of those, my favorite. But if you're hearing that, it's not an expectation. It's not a requirement for the following philosophy and strategy to apply to you or work for you. Just know that that's going to be part of his spiel. Okay. All right. Let me get into his bio, and then we'll take this away because we're a lot to cover, and we want to leave time for some questions. I think Shawn may elect to take some questions throughout, so feel free to put your questions in the chat as usual, and Michael will maybe vet those out. All right. Mr. Shawn and his bio. So I wrote this out last night, you guys. So I'm going to read my notes. And okay, Mr. Shawn O'Connor. Shawn has been in real estate in some capacity for his entire professional career, from real estate developer, where he worked with merchants, builders, and crafted master plan community developments, which is no small feat, by the way, to corporate real estate, where he was the COO for a telecom consulting firm, clients like T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, which brings us to the present day and time. Shawn is a full-time self-employed real estate investor where he has mastered the art of fix and flip in multiple markets. Also not a very easy task. Anybody that's done fix and flip knows that to go outside your own backyard and try and do that, that's double tough. He's successfully managed nationwide wholesaling. He is the owner and operator of Co-Living Rentals, Bigger Rents founder, where he is both coach and mentor to others in the co-living asset class. He holds a master's degree in business administration from Pepperdine University, and of course maintains an active California real estate broker's license. So clearly, I think we can all agree that he definitely comes with a pedigree and commands our respect in the space. He knows what he's talking about. Okay, anyway, Shawn, take it away, man. I am so excited to hear about this. I will be quiet now. And I will tell you guys, hold on, I got to say one thing. I had blood drawn this morning. It had to be fasted, and I've been going a million miles an hour. I may be chomping on some soup. I will mute myself, but if you see me eating, don't be offended. I have to eat or I'm going to die. So I'm going to share my screen, and Mr. Shawn is going to take over. Hang tight, guys. Let's go here and present. And I will be responsible to change these for you, Shawn. You just tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll
Take
have
it
to
away,
remember
Shawn.
to say switch.
Okay,
Okay,
switch. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you, Caeli. It's great to be here. Such a esteemed introduction. You talk about Mr. O'Connor. I keep looking around. Is my dad here? It's like I forget sometimes, but that is my name. So great to be here. But this is really an important topic, and I really want all of you to understand what I've learned over time and how this whole co-living rent-by-room model works. What propels it, and that's what we're going to dive into today. But just a bit of background for me. If you let me know, where you guys are today, what town or city where you're calling in from, and if it's different, what market you invest in, because that's also part of the consideration as well. But as Caeli said, investing remotely is another whole kettle of fish, if you will. So anyway, it's great to be here. I'm happy to say that also the co-living model will work really in any market on two fronts: if it has durable employment, and if there's a lack of housing affordability. So if those two things exist where you are or where you invest, co-living will work for you. So the first two questions on the slide, I'm going to start there. You can answer aloud, but I'm going to jump forward and answer both of them this way: no and hell no. I don't know. With few exceptions, it's been really tough, at least for me, to find a good or great deal anywhere. I don't know about any of you. Maybe you've bought something this year. I have to say, for me, it's been slow. I mean, I think I just read somewhere it's been the slowest year for transactions in the U.S. since 1995. It's the first year for me in many years. I haven't bought or sold anything or been involved in a transaction this year. So I've not been resting. I've been getting ready for 26 and doing things like this with Caeli and bringing this information to this audience is my pleasure to do. So
Planting seeds, right?
Yeah, but I think
Shawn,
it's been combination of high rates and rising prices have really at the heart of why it's been so tough, and what makes finding cash flow nearly impossible. I think we can probably agree, if not nearly entirely impossible of late. So let me try to give you some insight on how to crack that code as I have, not because I had some great insight or genius. It just happened to be, again, one of those timing things that we'll talk about timing at the heart of all of this. But so is it a good time to buy, or should we wait for rates to drop? I think that's the question. Seems to be on everyone's mind. Is it a good time now, later? I mean, but really, is it when will we know when that good time is? I mean, is someone going to issue a memo or a bulletin or something and we'll know now's it? I don't think so. So I'm going to share a heat map in a minute from Zillow, and I thought it was really powerful. It takes the market conditions at the end of Q3 25 compared to the same counties across the country in Q3 2020. So a 5-year look back or period. I don't know about you guys. So remember 2020? Yeah, that was in the heart of the COVID lockdowns, or at least the early stage. You know, that was speaking of timing. That was one of those timing points where I made a really bad decision, even though at the time it seemed like the right thing to do. I sold a prime piece of property. Excuse me a minute. And seemed like, you know, the world was coming to an end, and I felt lucky I was able to sell that property at that time. Of course, I didn't have the benefit of the crystal ball or foresight to know that we'd have meteoric appreciation over those early years of this decade. But I don't know, you guys. I mean, I remember just a recollection as I go down memory lane here. I remember at the time in Las Vegas, where I invest, walking through the casinos and along the strip. I mean, we've all probably been there or seen a TV show if you've never been there personally. I mean, it's packed, right? Normally, my wife and I were literally the only people on the street in the casinos. It was really just like something out of a zombie apocalypse movie. So who knew what would come out of that? But it was a horrible time to sell, as it turned out. So, but the heat map's going to show us that we've had extraordinary appreciation over those first 3 years, at least, of this decade. So I don't know if you guys remember also Zillow, in their infinite wisdom, they went into the iBuyer world. I don't know anybody that was fixing or flipping. Boy, I was, and they were one of my biggest competitor. I mean, they'd buy anything, right? I mean, it just wasn't a fair fight. They'd pay almost any price for anything. So, but it wasn't long after that, 2021, that whole Zillow offers program shut down after they lost. I think it was somewhere between 880 million and $1 trillion.
Jesus, that guy was fired.
Yeah. Now, was that poor market timing or something else? I don't know. You know, I think the theme here is that this whole market timing thing is, you know, probably nothing any of us should try to perfect. If Zillow can't get it done, I mean, really, should we be trying to be one of them? I don't think so. So, you know, is really interest rates at the heart of things? I mean, back then, interest rates were still pretty low, and they still screwed it up. So, with all their data and financial might, I don't know. You know, timing doesn't seem to be something we all ought to be betting on or trying to time. So, with that, let's Caeli, move to that. Before we do that, let me just mention the Tiny Challenge giveaway before I forget. You know, that for everybody that stays to the end, you're going to be eligible for a Tiny Challenge giveaway. And, you know, everyone's wondering, what the heck is that? Well, I'm not going to tell you right here. You got to stick around to the end, but we did tease it in some of the advance email blasts that Team Ridge sent out. So stick around. We'll talk more about that at the end. So if you'll pull up the heat map now, Caeli, let me just
Gotcha.
explain.
Yep.
Well, if you go one back, there's a key there that explains what those colors are. So it's pretty simple. The red ones are hot market, blue ones are cold, but Zillow takes this 3 indicators to arrive at this. So it's home price change, inventory levels, and days on market to give us this score of high or low. So now you can go to the heat maps now. So
It's an average of the three, Shawn?
it's, they didn't reveal
Okay.
all the secret sauce. It's some kind of blend of those three things.
Okay.
But I think that the important point here is if you look at red being a hot market and blue being a cold market, look what's happened in 5 years. I mean, it's, first of all, when I sold, I thought it was going to be a cold market, right? I thought we were going God knows where, and I couldn't get out fast enough. And boy, did I make a mistake in hindsight. And now we're looking at today, a cold market. It's interesting. I don't know about you guys, but I look around, I don't see a whole lot of motivated sellers out there. People, signaling that they're, in distress and ready to drop their price. I've been looking, but I'm just not seeing it, at least in the markets where I, keep my eye peeled. And so it's interesting. I think that we'll know soon whether we've hit the bottom and whether we're going to be returning to the red side of the equation like we saw in 2020. I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to prognosticate here. That's not the point for today. But on a related note, over that time, excuse me, it was just reported that in that 5 years, that half the country has seen has doubled in their equity buildup. I mean, I think it's staggering that that kind of metric. So the buildup, I wanted to kind of share a little game here or have some fun with it. 5 states. I should say there's 5 states that had increase over 200%, which I'm sorry to say I'm not investing today in any of those, but those of you that are lucky enough, maybe you're part of that reported $34 trillion in equity buildup that currently is reported as being in at least our homes today across the country. So just to have some fun, put in the chat what state you think would be number one for having the greatest equity buildup, 200% or above. Now I'm gonna caution you that it's probably not one of those states that's going to jump to mind. I'll tell you, it's not California, it's not New York. So take those off. It's not even Florida. So,
I was starting to type in Florida. All right, I'll wait.
Yeah, it's none of those. So it's none of the sexy ones we hear about. So here's the top 5 in reverse order. Number 5, Illinois, 217%. Never would have guessed it.
Wow.
Number 4 is Kansas at 234%. Now, Kansas was one of my remote markets I used to fix and flip in. So unfortunately, again, timing, I've sold everything since then. So you could say I was poorly timed again, my exit from that market. Number 3 is Connecticut, 297%. And then the top 2, Oklahoma at 431%. That's huge. I mean, and it so happens that's the property where the mark, should say that's the state where the property we're going to talk about in the case study is located. Then number 1, West Virginia, 450%. Wow. So if any of you there are holding property in West Virginia, congratulations. I want you to help me pick my next state to invest in. So, so again, back to that question: is it a good time to buy, or should we wait for interest rates to drop first? I don't know. Can anybody really know? I mean, I would argue the right time. I can tell you when it is, and that's now. But I'm going to show you why I believe that as we go into this case study. And Caeli and I are going to demonstrate to you why we can start taking this whole market timing thing out of the equation. And we're going to introduce you to a way that you can really safely invest in real estate today, holding it long-term, earning a predictable, steady cash flow, and building long-term wealth. So that's what I aim to, expose you to today, and, market timing be damned. So if everyone's with me on that, let's go to the next slide, and we'll give it a little bit about the webinar, what we're going to cover today. A little bit about who I am and who the co-living guy is. That's me. So I'm going to cover just some of the dynamics of the model, how and why it works, sort of what propels it, who should own it or who might consider owning it, who benefits, and where I see the market going and why I see it going there. Excuse me. Then on to the most eye-opening part, which is going to be the case study. And I'm going to set that up when we get there. We're going to compare a single-family rental to a co-living rental. I'm going to give you my sort of crude conversion of the floor plan, where I just took a snapshot of the existing floor plan and converted it in a PDF. And so you have to excuse my artwork, but it serves a point. And then we're going to talk about the meat of it, which is the ROI on the, if I were to buy that single tenant rental, whole house rental compared to co-living. And then we'll take some questions, and then we'll kind of wrap up and talk about next steps. So, so just a point I wanted to say that, you were invited here by Caeli because,
Yes.
you're an important valued client to her. And she's probably helped you close deals before. And so she's trusted by you. So I'm pleased and proud to be here as extension of that. And so I treat that with great respect and covet the opportunity to share this stuff with you. Let's see. I think you've been invited to do one of your portfolio reviews. Maybe you've done it already. Maybe you're in queue to do it with her. The idea there is to tune up your existing portfolio, make sure what you've got is performing to maximum potential, and then to socialize with Caeli, the soonest opportunity to acquire another property, either your first or your next property. So don't overlook that opportunity to do that. And of course, that then gets you queued up to, if you're inclined, be ready to proceed with an opportunity to buy something here to put into to work in co-living. So I'm going to show you how you can earn 3 times gross rents, 2 times net income with co-living rentals and midterm. Now, I'm going to compare that to the same darn house, renting the whole house to a single family long-term. And we'll go through that case study, and I'm also going to show you a quick video that of an existing co-living rental, so you can kind of get a sense for what the darn thing should look like or could look like if you were to own one yourself. Excuse me. So again, the takeaway is to demonstrate to you how you can take advantage of buying the co-living property today, convert to rent by room. You don't have to wait for rates to drop. You don't have to wait for that memo or that bulletin, and you can start producing positive cash flow right away. So depending on the loan program that you and Caeli decide is best suited for you to do that, you could even sell a you could even buy a property today without selling with it, which I think is really important. A lot of people I've talked to say, well, I'd love to do that, but I got to sell what I got to raise the money. Well, if you're talking about taking advantage of leveraging your equity, either in your home or in your when your rental portfolio houses or houses, you can start shopping right away without delay in today's so-called buyer's market, right? So I think that sounds like a pretty good idea. And if you do, let's take it to the next slide. So again, who I am, founder of Bigger Rents, soon to be launching my YouTube channel of the co-living guys. So you can look for that sometime in the future if something vibes here with you guys. So we're a business accelerator. I help people who want to own their first co-living property, to do that, grow their monthly cash flow, their net annual income, and build long-term wealth. So I think we can probably all agree that we could all benefit from a little more take-home money at the end of the day. So who wouldn't be, right? I mean, I am, and you can never get enough of a good thing. So we're all in the right room here, I think. Excuse me. So as Caeli mentioned, I own and operate co-living rentals. Been doing that hands-on for 4 years. We looked at a few other forms of co-living, or I should say shared housing, for probably 2 years before that. So I've been, sniffing around this thing for quite a while. I pivoted from my fix and flip business in 2020. And again, I happily say that I consistently generate 3x gross renting my houses midterm to employed individuals. I think is a key part here. People always wonder who in the heck's gonna rent a room in a house. So I've, over that time doing this, I've gained extensive experience and know-how, which I can, in co-living, which I can share with you guys. So there's probably not a question I haven't, struggled through, wrestled through, solved, and I can happily be here to answer those for you. So just, again, a bit of background, just to kind of give you some perspective. I was fortunate to be part of a group of investors in 21 who approached PadSplit and convinced them that if we seeded the Las Vegas market with 10 co-living houses, they'd launch in the market as a branded market for PadSplit, which they did do in 2022. So that was quite an experience, marshaling the having that discussion and getting them across the Rocky Mountains to the western region. So they've since that time have been on sort of a meteoric expansion campaign and are in many markets in the West and really across the U.S. So my intention for today is to, again, introduce you to this co-living rental model and then answer for you to answer the question, why this, why now, and why you, which at the end of the day is who is here and why you're here. Is it a fit? So I'm going to provide you examples of how you can gain cash flow in your pocket, $800 to $1,200 a month, depending on how you structure your debt, from inside of 6 months from today. So if that interests you, Caeli and I can help you do that with, excuse me, launching that with, some of the programs that she and I have been working on, how to, she alluded to, raise some of that stranded equity in your home and put it to work. That equity, by the way, is sitting there in some amount that's earning, a big zero on your return. So if while you're thinking about how your existing assets are performing, consider that your home equity is doing nothing for you today in terms of generating a return on cash. It looks great on your personal balance sheet, but that equity isn't doing anything to help you in your lifestyle, putting food on the table, or even, maybe enjoying some extracurricular activity, travel, entertainment, whatever it might be. So, excuse me. So it also, as you, Caeli mentioned, you don't have to be, this isn't just for, those that own rentals. If you're here, you're still seeking your first property, don't worry, we've got you covered there. Even though you don't have equity buildup to draw on, if you didn't, you can go to, didn't attend, you can go to Caeli's house hacking webinar, which was like 2 weeks ago, the 29th of October. There's a wealth of information there that'll whet your appetite. You can see how you too can get in this game and then own your first rental, house hack it, and in 12, 24, 36 months, be ready to take your equity, recycle it, and move on to your first, co-living rental and start producing 3x net income like we're talking about today. So my bigger vision really is to help everyone I come in contact with discover what I have. So this life-changing co-living rental asset class, it really will transform your life, also the lives of your guests for the better. So it's really becomes win-win for everybody involved. So we're going to go through a few slides. I'm going to give you a little bit of background, some common understanding, some core principles, and then we'll hit that case study. And then Caeli will fire some questions at me, and you'll have the opportunity to do so as well. So let's go to the next slide next. And that's really sort of getting sort of the basis here. So short and learn, what's short, what's long-term rental? Short-term is 30 days or less. Long-term is 12 months or more. So you can probably guess what midterm is. It's more than 30, less than 12 months. So now we all pass with flying colors. You probably figured that out without me leading that. But co-living means renting by room, mid-term, workforce shared housing, and dare I forget, a pad split. That's become a common noun where all these things are synonymous with renting by room, a private room within your house, your guest shares common kitchen, bathrooms, and laundry within the property. And by doing that, excuse me, is going to produce to you as the owner a steady, predictable cash flow, month over month. I'm not going to get too much into all of the benefits of why the operational benefits, because really there are many. If you've owned single tenant rentals, you're not going to be dealing with this whole house turnover where you may be vacant for a month or two. Your house isn't going to be tortured. You're not going to, I don't know about here. I'm going to digress for a second. If those of you that own single tenant rentals, you do your best shot at vetting for the perfect tenant. You background check, you do all your employment check, you talk to past landlords. You think you've done your level best. You give them the keys, you walk away, you do a Hail Mary and hope to God you pick the right person, and then you sheepishly open the door when they vacate and I hope to God they weren't taking target practice in the back bedroom, or they've turned it into a grow house for marijuana or God knows what. So those are all some of those risks that some of you, unfortunately, probably like I have experienced. So in the co-living environment, you're not going to have those kinds of problems because you're going to have 24 access to your house, or your delegate will, and you can see how any of these aberrant lifestyle behaviors might present. So you can solve those things quickly and get that turned around. So those are just a few of the benefits in comparison to renting whole house.
And Shawn,
but really
can I interject
sure.
real quick?
Yeah, please.
Wouldn't it seems to me that in this particular model that it would be so much less common because you're in that space with other people, right? You're not probably going to get the people that want that privacy and need those, that structure where they can be total slobs and scumbags, right? They're co-living with. I would just assume that it's a far less common scenario than you would find in a long-term rental.
It's very true, Caeli, and you don't necessarily pick a house mom or a house dad or whatever in the house, but there's a community setting that forms there, and that's really one of the keys that we'll talk about at some point about the culture that you create, the community that gets created, and that really is sort of the driving or managing force in the house. You don't have to be cracking the code. You don't come in there and lay down policy and threaten and do all those things. I mean, you might find that is not the most effective way to have a successful community. If you've had kids or that doesn't wear well always, for at least it might for the moment or one time, but for long term that doesn't work. So yes, you'll find that the house kind of self-sorts. People that don't fit in tend to leave. And so that is a less onerous task the question always comes up, oh, what about evictions? What about this and that? I haven't had to do that. Have I had to ask people to leave? Yes. It's a conversation we have. We kind of agree together. This really isn't a fit for you. And honestly, the sooner you can get to that as the owner host, the better, because there truly is that, that one bad apple can spoil things, because it can, people don't want to live with a malcontent or someone that doesn't fit in. So, it's frequently, or I wouldn't say frequently, but I have a relationship with my guests where someone will ping us and say, my wife or I, and say, hey, we've noticed this or that going on. You might want to, step in and take action, or take note of it at least. So it's a self-reporting kind of thing. Plus I have regular people in the house, whether it's, my cleaning crew that's in their clean common area, or it's my pest control that's in on some regular service interval. They're my eyes and ears. I don't have to be the one walking through there, cracking the whip. I have a set house rule policy. Everybody signs off on it. Everybody knows what the game is and what the score is. And so everyone wants kind of the same thing. So thanks for that question. It's really a great one. And it's a pertinent one and germane to this conversation, but it really isn't a big problem if you do the right stuff with putting the right people in your house. So that's how turnover isn't a big problem. Again, no one's turning over all at once either. So that point of steady, predictable cash flow is really pretty easy to predict. People stay from 8 to 10 months. You don't get that heave ho where everybody notices you at once, because people are coming in on a staggered schedule. They're leaving on a staggered schedule. So you can pretty much design your debt structure such that, there's no promise of absolutes, but I mean, the probability of ever having a vacant house or being cash flow negative is so minute if you do if you structure this right, that again, this really becomes pretty simple to predict that you're always going to be in the red, or in the black, I should say, never in the red. So
Shawn, just for time, I just want to give you a quick heads up. We're at 138, sure. Whatever that means to you.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's, here's one other principle and what underlies why co-living works and why single family compared to single family. The first room in a single family rental is the most expensive room in that house, and every room in that house is worth less. So bedroom 2, less than 1, 3 less than 2, 4 less than 3, and so on. So that's kind of an odd or a strange thing to get your head around at first. But on a graph, it looks like a declining curve, where in a co-living rental, this is really what propels the whole thing. The first room and the last room rent for the same price. So your model is, or your income is level. It does, the first room and the 8th room produce the same revenue. And that's why you get to those kind of revenue numbers in comparison, whole house versus rent by room. And so that's, what is the secret sauce, I suppose, to this whole thing and why it works. So it's just math, as they would say. So basically you're taking those underperforming, spaces in the house, and you're converting them into bedroom space. So it's dining room, family room, living room, bonus room, parlor, basement, garage. All of those things can be converted. The model calls for roughly a 3-to-1 ratio of bedrooms to bathrooms. And again, they're sharing those along with the common kitchen and laundry. So, the other thing, tactically, you become the low price leader in your market. And because, why, you ask? Because you're going to price at roughly 25 to 30% discount below a 1-bedroom apartment. So you don't have to guess when you're modeling this stuff. When you're looking at a market, you don't have to guess, gee, what would someone pay for my room, you go look at what's already being demonstrated in the market in the one bedroom apartment.
Shawn, say that last part again for me,
Yeah.
would you? I want to hear that
Sure.
again.
So you become the low price leader for rents for rooms in your market. So you're going to rent your co-living room at roughly a 25 to 30% discount below a one
Because you've
bedroom
got the shared amenities. Okay.
Yeah. So when we model this thing, and we'll talk about it in the illustration, your rents are modeled in there at a discount below a one bedroom, one bath apartment. So in this case, in OKC, I went and found one bedroom apartments nearby the subject property, and that's what we're using for our model. I'm gonna, let's see, rush ahead here because I want to get to the meat. Caeli,
Should I switch slides?
Yeah, before let's see, what did I want to talk about? So that's what you're looking at there are the two houses. The one on the left is the house and these are both in OKC. The one on the left is the one that was on market for rent as a whole house rental. The house on the right is the one I'm using for the co-living illustration. And it happens to be on market for sale. The reason I picked out, no particular reason other than to say that it had a space plan in there so I could use that for show and tell here in today's presentation. So what Caeli challenged me to say, show me how this darn thing works. So she sent me an avatar client in that market. I said, okay, let me take it on. So I've never been to OKC before. I've never owned anything there. I've never been there. I know they have a basketball team. I've flown over it before. So I don't have any great insight, but this is the point, illustrate the point that, you don't have to be necessarily a student of the market to know how to make this thing work. So again, in this case, that we're going to show this client of Caeli's. Yeah, go ahead. This client of Caeli's, was going to pull their home equity and put it to work. So what I did, this house here is, let me jump to my notes. So this house is 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, 2109 square feet. And I'm going to convert this, which is the slide on the right, to 9 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, 2,600 square feet. So in this case, I'm converting the garage to 2 living spaces to get this thing to 9. Now, we're not going to get into depth on, these are all the logical questions. Oh, can you convert a garage in OKC? I don't know. I can convert garages in Las Vegas by permit. Whether you do it in OKC, I don't know. This is, again, we'll find that out if someone wants to go forward with this. But for the sake of the illustration, that's how I got to 9, whether you permit or not. I'm taking the family room, the living room, the dining room, the garage. I'm converting all that to living space to get to my 9 3.5 configuration. So
are there template like blueprints that you work from, that you've used, that you've created, that you can kind of plug and play, or is it very different for every property?
Well, no. Well, there are some that have tried to do that have spent a lot of money. They're out there hustling to get you to sign up for their program, and they'll deliver all that stuff to you. You really got to get your eyes on it and walk it. I mean, anybody that's converted, it has some kind of experience in construction technology, and has built a few rehabs or fix and flips. You kind of have a knack for where things go, and so you got to really get your eyes on it. I've done it enough times where I kind of know, and you ultimately have to go walk through this to know, to prove it. And you certainly wouldn't take my word for it. But again, I just done it enough times. I know what should be able to work. So for the sake of the illustration, that's what's underlying the case study we're going to look at. So I want to first show you how a converted house will look, since this is pretty crude. I have it in the next slide, or next 2 slides over, Caeli. So this is a picture of one of my house in Vegas. If you click that video,
this is a video, right?
Let me start show again. the finished product of one of my houses. Now this house was
Sorry, you
two
guys.
and a half.
I shouldn't be running the slides.
This was a 2.5 my house when it started, 2,800 square feet, and today it is 9.4. So I took this.
Can I push play?
And, you should push play. You
Okay.
should be able to push play.
Yep. I was just waiting for the go.
And so it'll just kind of take you through. Mainly, I want you to see what that's where everybody lives. The living room. I'm sorry, the kitchen family. The country kitchen really it's where everyone lives. But this is what a typical room looks like. Not altogether different than what you might find in a VRBO or Airbnb. It's nice. It's clean. People, feel at home. It really is their home. And it's a nice place. They're proud to be there, and they love it. Is really what at the end of the day what the feedback we get.
I'm writing down more
can-
questions. My questions
you
are
can-
piling up.
You can jump ahead
Okay.
to the
Next.
next thing, just in the interest of time. So what we're looking at here is on the left, and it's pretty small. I'm sorry, I'll just kind of give you the gist of it if you can't see it. But the gist of it is that, the house on the left is the single tenant illustration, and the house on the right is the co-living. So I've tried to make it as level set as you could, meaning that the price of the property roughly the same, closing costs, the entry fee, all about the same. The difference being is that you're going to invest in this illustration roughly $45,000, let's say, rounding up, to do the conversion to rent by room. The rental income, and I just took the rental income for the house that I showed you on market for rent, $2,480 monthly, and then the rents that I derived from doing the analysis, what I said, taking a nearby one bedroom apartment, discounted it 70% to come up with my monthly rent by room, and then multiplied that by 9, put a vacancy factor in there, and loaded with I use my expenses that I know to be true in the Vegas market. Some are all maybe slightly different than in OKC, where it might snow or it doesn't in Vegas, all those kinds of things. But those are marginal differences. PadSplit numbers the same. The utility costs may be slightly different, but again, these are marginal changes to the bottom line. It's my co-living illustration as the other that includes, professional property management, all your insurance, your taxes, all in your total expenses, including debt service. Now, in this case, the Caeli's client is pulling 400 or 340,000 out of their existing house and putting it to work. So the debt service on this is actually the debt service on the HELOC. They're paying cash for one of these two properties, either the whole house rental or the co-living rental. And then their debt service is on the HELOC rent, or the HELOC debt service on their primary residence. So at the end of the day, if you pick the single tenant co-living rental, the single tenant rental, your net income is going to be a negative $425 a month. So I would counsel anybody, as you already would agree, I'm sure, and why we're not buying things and haven't been buying things. You'd never want to buy an alligator and bet on appreciation or all the other subsequent benefits of depreciation and taxes, that sort of. I mean, you just wouldn't do that. I would never. Some might. I would never. I would advise anybody against that. Where, in the same time frame, in the same neighborhood, I can do all that stuff. Hire a PadSplit, hire a property manager, borrow that same debt, put $45,000 into the improvements, including furnishings, and have over $1,000 a month in my pocket every month. That's at almost 22% return on my invested cash. So that's, and this was not a unique scenario. I didn't go look for days or weeks to find this needle in a haystack. I can demonstrate this and find this all day long, again, in markets where there's durable employment and a lack of affordable housing opportunity. And we can do it over and over again. So with that, Caeli, hit me with some questions. There's probably a ton of them. I teed up a few to you. Ask me ones that come to mind. Let's go.
Well, you've been talking, I've been writing a few down, and I'll get to the ones that you and I covered too. So one of my first things is I'm always thinking about, client experience, in this case, tenant experience. What kind of creative freedoms, right? And this may be getting too much into the weeds, Shawn.
Okay.
So if we want to cover higher level stuff, I can go through things like, compliance, city and county, and kind of what to be prepared for where that's regarded. We can do that instead.
Sure.
You tell me, do we want to go higher level? Maybe I shouldn't go too much into the weeds.
Doesn't matter. I mean, in the interest of time, let's just do, and Michael's probably got a few questions in the chat that we asked for. So
here's one that I saw property management here on a pad split on the co-living, 8%. That seems really low. Is it really only 8% for that?
No, that's not the PadSplit. That's the professional management. So in the PadSplit model,
This one says 8. No, am I looking at it wrong?
you're looking at the line above that is, okay. Yes. On the single tenant, no, on the co-living side, I use the same numbers, whether it's for whole house or PadSplit, just to keep the, these things run the gamut. I try to be conservative.
Okay.
It might be more than that, for goodness sakes. It depends on a lot of things, right? Depends on the market, depends on the level of expertise.
Okay.
My experience is on the co-living side and in the system with PadSplit, which I highly advocate for, not because I'm a paid spokesperson, but because it's a great place to start for your first co-living experience, because you'll learn a lot. All the stuff is new to me, will be new to you. They give you some K-rails, some guide rails. So PadSplit's going to charge you. They're going to, in theory, manage the guest, the tenant. You, as the owner of the house, manage the house. You master lease your house to PadSplit. You are not direct with the person that stays in your house. They are. You are responsible for delivering the house and maintaining it status quo so that it looks like the pictures I showed you. So that's where you have a fully loaded expense here with PadSplit and professional management, and I have a 10% reserve for whatever incidentals as they come up or may come up. So
what about common space? In looking at the illustration with the property, the kitchen's the common space, right? There's not going to be an area where they sit and watch TV together. It's really correct. Just the eating area. They've got their laundry.
I have one outside under gazebo or covered, a pergola or patio. It's nice enough most of the time.
Yeah, right.
They can go outside and watch TV. But most, and I've never had any of it this way. This is the PadSplit formula. The founder of PadSplit, Atticus LeBlanc, will tell you, in his experience, nothing good happens in the living room. It's
all
just
in the kitchen. That's where we go in my house.
It's a magnet for. In the rental environment, it encourages, entertaining, having guests over, all the things you want to discourage, overnight stays, partying. That's none of this. Again, your guest here is someone that's hardworking, fully employed, that wants to come home and wants peace and quiet. This is not the place to party or hang out. If you want to do that, do it on your own time somewhere else. Come home, get ready, go to work, and rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Right. Shawn, what about appreciation, rent appreciation, right? We've got our home appreciation. What about annual appreciation of rents? How does that factor in with the per room?
Well, surely
it just goes along with
it's like tied,
single
right?
family.
Absolutely. So, and again, in none of my illustrations do I ever project those things. I'm looking at day one, what can I generate on the cash I'm going to invest day one? So within 6 months, if that's the time horizon for acquiring, converting, filling, and operating, which it is, what's that number day one? If I've, or 6 months out, if you will. And I would put that carry cost would all be in that, acquisition cost figure, that interest carry. So again, you're not coming out of pocket. You're servicing that out of the borrowed money that you use in your total acquisition cost. So
Okay.
I don't know if I
Yeah,
got
no,
you,
I
right?
think, I got it.
Answered it.
I have all these questions, but Michael, why don't we switch to what
Yep.
questions we have in the chat? Let's get listener, and I'm going to tell Vonna, I'm going to scoot and tell Vonna to push my 1 o'clock just because I think we're going to go over a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. So we've got some really good questions here about PadSplit. First thing I'd just like to clarify, because you've said the word PadSplit in this, because that's what the webinar is about many times. But for those who don't know, PadSplit is a website, right? You can go to PadSplit.com, and this is where you essentially give them the capacity to manage the property, correct?
That's correct. Think of PadSplit as a marketplace, not unlike, although different, but not unlike Airbnb. It's a place where you go and shop
Right.
for vacation rentals. Here you're going and shopping for a room to rent. Anywhere where PadSplit is active and brands. And again, I don't know the number now. I'm going to say it's 15 or 20 major markets today. They started in Atlanta, but their aim is to be, in every major market. They'll support you in any market, whether they actually brand there and advertise there or not. The pay structure is a little different, what they charge you, but they also don't advertise there. So then you're on your own to do the tenant attraction and vetting. So, but that's the difference. But yeah,
Okay.
so it's a
that helps.
marketplace.
Okay, so that helps. So it's a two-sided marketplace. You can put your property there, they host it, list it, and then they're potentially driving people to the website so that they can rent those rooms out.
That's correct. And
Okay.
just to point out, the guest that comes to the house is actually a member of PadSplit. They sign them up as a member, like a Costco member,
Yep.
right? So now as a member of PadSplit, you've been vetted, et cetera, and now you can rent any room, anytime, anywhere on the PadSplit platform. So if you're mobile or if your workplace is changing, you might be here today in another city, 6 months from now, you can operate within that framework.
Yeah. So there's a lot of professions, guys, those of you who don't know, that do travel for work, not just, casually, but there's traveling nurses, professors, there's all sorts of people that do travel for a living, and they need structured, furnished living environment that is vetted and easy. So that is definitely, it sounds, Shawn, like that's a prime time target for you.
And I didn't say or note this, but I will. The reason I picked the two houses I picked and the zip code I picked in OKC is just down the street. There's an employer who employs $20 an hour to $50 employees, 4,500 of them. So I have a built-in audience there. Beside the reasons I explained about why you're likely to stay full, being the low price leader, I have an unlimited supply of people to draw from. So those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to think about when you're thinking about where do I want to own and operate a co-living house.
Yep. All right. Let me just blast through these questions then. So one question for Caeli. Okay. When buying this type of home on a PadSplit, is the pay that you collect the rent, can you calculate it on the room by room, or are you doing it in a traditional way?
Very good question. As of right now, underwriting guidelines are just coming online to allow us to use short-term rental. You will not be able to use per room leases to qualify. You can use the aggregate. So chances are it won't be occupied when you are purchasing it anyway, right? So what we're going to do in underwriting is we're going to use the appraisal on a long-term rental basis. The appraisal of an investment property is going to give us a median of what long-term rents are going for there. And remember, this is qualification, you guys, not reality. So whatever the appraisal says on a purchase transaction for a like-kind property that is long-term tenanted is what we're going to give you a percentage of to help offset that new mortgage payment in the DTI category or in the DSCR category. But to your question, whoever asked that, no, you cannot use 6 leases. No, you may not do that in underwriting as it exists today. I will say now it may be a slow bleed, but because, lending is a little bit slow to make some of these moves. Like I said a second ago, short-term rental income is now starting to be allowed because it has become more mainstream. I have every intention that we'll see co-living in a year or 2 years or whatever. When that becomes more mainstream, there'll probably be some allowances for it then, but just not today.
Yep. Sweet. So another question here, can you have cameras in the shared part of the home if all the renters agree and sign to that?
It's interesting. We thought about it for a while. We have not put them in the common area. It's interesting. I'll borrow from what I've heard PadSplit say, and other operators have said, that actually it becomes, particularly for women, because these are co-living houses. Your room's private, common areas are common. So women feel very comfortable having a camera as a single woman in a house. Now, I suppose it becomes less a worry once they get moved in and they know everybody. But few have I heard say, "Oh, that's I'd never rent a room in that configuration." It's, we never did it. We've never really felt the need. But when it helps, it might help in a kitchen where someone's, piece of Tupperware went missing and somebody actually used it by accident. You might go back and look at the tape and go, "Hey, Jim took Sam's Tupperware, give it back," or, that kind of thing. It's really benign. It's not intended to be like, an incarcerated environment.
Hey, Michael,
Nice.
ask Mike, it's Rainman, I think. I
Yeah,
want
it
to
is.
hear the answer to that. I have a response to that too, because I think I know what Sean's going to say, but let's ask that one.
Why wouldn't someone just find roommates on their own property and cut out the gross rent?
Sorry, there's a bit of crosstalk there,
No,
Michael.
that's not the question.
Say
I'm looking
again?
at a different one, but go ahead.
Oh, Mike's been very active, which I appreciate.
Okay.
So
Okay, good.
this question
Mike.
was, why wouldn't somebody just buy a house and find roommates?
Well, that's sort of the house hacking model, I would say. Well, I think that's a great way to get started, particularly
Agreed.
for, first-time buyers. There's some, I don't have to, I'm in Caeli's thing, but there's some great first-time buyer loan product out there. So, there's no better way, in my view, is to own and house hack and let your tenants pay your mortgage. You can have zero, at least get to a zero housing cost. Why not?
Yeah,
When you're
man.
getting started.
And
Yep.
I'm actually, so Mike, to that question, I'm working on now for my kids. I want them to do that, right? FHA 3.5% down. I'm going to put their skin in the game, but I'm going to bring this model to them and let them be the oversight. I mean, it'll probably be their buddies, their friends, whatever, but just so that they can kind of see the mechanics, the inner workings of this. I think that's a very good idea. I don't know that a lot of investors are going to do that, but yeah, of course they can, and why wouldn't they? That's absolutely. If I was getting started today, that's how I would do it. I'd buy a home and I'd rent out the rooms.
And for you, those Jen, let's see,
Z?
Y and Z who might be on this call, I got a little hint. Just get closer to the mic and whisper. Go to your parents and suggest they pull some of that equity out of their house, and you'll partner with them on a co-living experience. You'll house hack with them, or you'll at least manage the whole house for co-living. I mean, your parents are gonna leave it to you probably anyway, so you may as well earn in instead of just get on the gravy train and get it once they pass. So let's make this a family affair.
Michael, I'm gonna hijack this because I want to ask Mike's other question. How important are amenities like game room, hot tub, pool table, etc.? Can this increase the demand and occupancy? So to your point, Sean, not this particular model, right? You don't have that. I think that's what you're gonna say. I'll let you have the last word, but Mike, I like that idea. That's kind of where my mind goes. Although, as I think it through, there's probably a whole slew of issues that probably can promote. But what would you say about that? If someone were to take this and use that and try to apply those differences where you did have some of those more common lifestyle things, I suspect it would be that you really have to scrutinize the hell out of who those tenants are, and you've got to have kind of a hall pass monitor that's selecting the right personality types. Kind of like, what was that stupid show on MTV that they all had to live together, right? What was it? Something?
Brother.
I don't
Well, there's
know.
many
No, it
of them,
wasn't
but Big Brother. Okay.
No, I'm old, okay? Please, let's not, I won't date myself too
Real
much.
world. Real world.
Real
yeah.
world,
Yeah.
right?
Chris,
Real world.
Good pull, Chris. Yeah.
We got it. Thanks, Chris. Anyway, so, right, I mean, what thoughts on that, Shawn?
Sure. Well, the first thing it wasn't the first thing, but one of the things I did on that house I showed you in Vegas, I cut the hot tub in half out of the backyard and threw it out. So, but I am all for segmenting the market. If you find, and this is at the heart of any of this, where do you fit? If you want to differentiate, if you see that everyone's going down market, you want to be mid market or up market in your price point and your offering. I don't see anything inherently wrong with that, especially if you're trying to wedge your way into a market that's more mature for co-living. If there were one of those, say in Atlanta, where PadSplit started, that's where the bulk of the rooms are, I would say, at a percentage. So I think it's not a bad idea. It does maybe possibly promote some of those things that I might not want to have in my house. Hey, let's have a kegger this weekend and watch football, or having overnight guests or those kind of things. So because again, what's good for one guest may not be so good for the other guest, and now where do you go from there? So
screening for the occupancy and interviewing, and there may be some cross involving them. I see a lot of potential in that, though, Mike and Shawn, because it could be for sober living, right? You could only have people that were clean and sober, or it could be for over 55, or you know what I mean? I mean, I just see so many different ways that you can go with that. Anyway, okay. I don't want to get off on a tangent. Are there any other good questions that we want to ask? I know we're over time.
There were a few questions kind of the same vein. I can probably summarize them in one question, which is, what sorts of things should be considered when it comes to zoning restrictions, parking restrictions, city, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
There, excuse me, untimely hoarse voice, excuse me. There's certainly those considerations. I would say most codes in most municipalities have not been updated. Some are hundreds of years old, depending on where you're talking about, around related parties living together in a house. Many of them were on the books to discourage brothels and gambling dens and all these other things. So to the point they're outdated, but they may still be there. Is there an armada of code enforcement people out there sniffing that out? Probably not. Most likely not.
Better to ask for forgiveness? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I think it's part of, you want to know what the code is. And
sure.
You want to know, that's part of your due diligence at the front end. What is it, and how enforceable is it? It could be,
penalty.
One of the things I do is I tell my guests, don't answer door knocks. You're not receiving guests. If Amazon shows up, they'll leave it. If you have to call 911, for God's sakes, let them in. But otherwise, no one's going to be sniffing around checking to see who's living in the house unless you give them a reason to check. So don't be a nuisance. Don't be a problem. Don't stand out. All those things that are just kind of common sense if you think about it, if you know to think about it. So that's what I help people do when I help guide them into this asset class. Can there be a problem? Sure. I don't think most municipalities, most planning departments, you can wander in there and say, hey, I'm just thinking about putting 9 bedrooms into this single family house zone. They're probably going to say, probably not. In the same way, very few fix and flippers, I can say, speak for myself, go pull permits in a house that are going to fix and flip. So, all this kind of comes back to common sense, risk analysis, there's inherent risk in any kind of payback model you're going to anticipate or assume or take on. So you got to measure that too. A pivot point could be, I think you mentioned it just a moment ago, Caeli. Sober living is a permitted use by the Supreme Court of the country. You can go anywhere with there. So if someone came in knocking one day and they force you under life or death to, throw your co-living tenants out, you could say, okay, I don't really want to manage a sober living home. I'm going to master lease it to an operator, and I'm still better than I would be if I rented that whole house to a single tenant. So, and if all came to hell in a handbasket and you had to convert back to co-living, back to, single tenant use, if you've done the right thing, you converted by the current UBC code for building, as far as where your plugs need to be, switches need to be, all those kinds of things, you could probably move a couple of rooms out and still be code compliant and sell your house for, 5 years later for a nice handsome return. So, you don't want to aim for that, but, you want to have an exit strategy if all hell came down on you. So
I have
I
so
hope
many
that answers.
questions. Yeah, I have so many questions. We're going to obviously do I think that the tease that you did at the top of the hour with the tiny challenge, just to kind of reiterate what he was saying, you guys, I think, are we selecting someone today? Is that what we're doing? Is that the kind of, or are we going to do it like a lottery?
Well, I was suggesting that, somebody that's gone through your
Okay.
portfolio review, we have someone that really wants to do this. We can pick out of a hat, like at the carnival, but I want to do something meaningful to everybody where we could actually do this. And that's really what the tiny challenge is. And this is what I do in my business, is taking someone, meeting them where they are, taking them through the steps, over 5 days, an hour a day that fits their schedule. And I want to invite, really everybody to participate if you want to, as an observer. We can take more questions. We can make this a thing where, we can really get more granular and take a real life scenario instead of one that I just kind of made up.
So what
on the
he's talking
fly.
about, you guys. So I want to say this back. Repeat what he said. So we're going to pick one person that's gone through an REO review, that's ready to do something. They maybe not know exactly what it is, but is pre-qualified, has a little skin in the game, because this is his time and my time. It doesn't obligate you to anything, but we want to know that whoever we're going to take through this process actually could do something should they choose to. So once we've identified that person, it should be very quick. We're going to set up a series. It's going to be a series every day for 5 days, an hour a day, like he was saying, where we're actually going to show you how to build the house now, right? Make the sausage. That's when we get into those in-depth things and start talking about things like, rate collection rate, medium member age, regulatory concerns like we talked about. We'll dig into that. I have so many questions that I know that I'm going to be adding to this list. So we're going to get into all of that. I would say, Michael, timeline for something like that, or guys, what do we think in the next week or two?
Yeah, we should definitely be getting an announcement out in the next week. And then I think maybe we're starting two weeks from now.
And then, so it'll probably be a week-long thing every day at noon. Okay, or whatever it is. Everybody will be invited to attend if you guys have registered. You'll get the emails and feel free to join. But there'll be one case study with one individual that we've chosen, tiny challenge, and we'll take that person and real life examples, right? If they have them, or I guess we can kind of create beta tests. But I think that'll be cool. I'm excited for that. And again, Shawn, your time, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I know we're super over. We still got a lot of people on. Last minute questions. What do we think, you guys? Should we pull this, or should we? I've got a minute, but
I also don't think this will be the last time we talk about PadSplit, and
Agreed.
house hacking in general. And one thing I thought was a really great insight here from Shawn was he talked about the process of moving from a house hacking strategy as sort of a first time investor, or maybe like just a savvy investor who doesn't mind moving every couple of years, and then taking that equity and moving it into a pad split where you can generate higher rentals, gross rents. And so I thought that was a great insight. In final news, too, guys, the calculator that we made available to you guys last week, it does have a room option, so you guys can look at that on a room by room basis if you want to, if
Oh,
you're
yeah, that's
looking at
right.
yeah, if you want to look at the whole hierarchy of house hacking, it includes an option there to do a room by room rental like PadSplit. And we're also putting together a master class for house hacking, which does have a full module and will likely include some of the content from this webinar in that master class for house hacking and PadSplit. That will be released next week. So we'll send you guys all an email on that.
Sweet. Shawn, any final words?
Well, I think I'm really looking forward to coming back and answering questions. It just doesn't ever seem to be enough time. So I'm really, again, really happy to be a part of this, happy to contribute. I mean, I think I had a box top puzzle picture in the slide deck, right? It probably seems a little bit like that, staring at that puzzle when you first open up the box and go, oh my gosh, where do you start? There's a lot here. And I'd love to share it all with you. And I think that's really what we'll aim to do with this tiny challenge. And then they'll give you a chance to take, if you think like me, I usually think of the questions afterwards. So you can do that today and then bring those questions, and then more will come as we get deeper into it. So I'll look forward to that.
This is what Shawn does. He is coach and mentor. So if anybody wants his contact information, right, I would love to give it to you. Just email info@ridgelendinggroup.com. And we'll get you all of his contact information if you want to talk to him one-on-one. I think he's got some stipulations on how much time he'll put in, but I'll let him disclose and disclaim that. Thank you, as always, for being here. You guys are awesome. We are on standby if you need questions on this or anything else. You know how to get us. We will see you soon. And this will be recorded. You guys will get a recording as soon as it's ready.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.